I'm Zoe. I make a lot of mistakes and I read a lot. I finally finished The Books of Jacob by Olga Tokarczuk. I filmed this last week and it didn't go well. I tried to edit it, I tried to upload it. Didn't go well. So we're trying again. So she's big. She's real big. She's about 960 pages. Why did I pick up this book? It's a question that many people asked me as I was reading it. I love Olga Tokarczuk. I think she is one of the most interesting writers, not just alive today, but alive ever. She's just startlingly clever. I read Drive Your Plow Over the Bones of the Dead a couple years ago, and I really enjoyed it, and it made me want to read more of her work. I haven't read Flights, but I do have a copy, and I read Primeval and Other Times. This is my favorite of the three Tokarczuk books that I have read. I think this is an almost perfect novel, and I think it is an almost perfect novel about the 20th century. And if you are looking to read any Tokarczuk, I would recommend this over the other two that I have read. This is harder to get your hands on, but I think it's worth it in my opinion. I think about this book all the time. And she's much shorter. She's not 900 pages. She is about 250. So much more achievable. If you're looking for Tokarczuk, pick her up. A question I had a lot while I was reading this book is, are you enjoying your time with it, Zoe? And I could not give a good answer to that question because I was not sure. Now that I have a little bit of distance from it, I am still not sure if I enjoyed my reading experience. I'm really glad that I read it. I think it's one of those books that the literary canon is richer for having within it. So this book is set in the 18th century, so the 1700s. It follows a group called the Frankists, who are led by Jacob Frank, who is the central character of the book. Not the protagonist, but definitely the character around whom the rest of the book revolves. He creates this hybrid Jewish Catholic religion and attracts a bunch of people who renounce their Judaism to follow him. And it starts in an area which is actually not Poland anymore, but was Poland at the time. And most of the book takes place in Poland. I am not explaining this book well. It follows him in his early days when he's going around the Ottoman Empire and kind of around the Mediterranean, and then he goes back to his homeland of Poland and creates this religion, accumulates all these followers, and accumulates controversy, and does a lot of very bad, objectively bad things. Jacob is not a good person. We are not ever convinced by Tokarczuk that he is a good person. There's a lot of not great things happening in this book. And it is interesting to me because all of the figures in this book, or at least nearly all of them, are based on real people. This is real history. The Frankists were a real group. So it's all based on real people. And Tokarczuk did a lot of research for this. She wrote the book over 10 years. It took Jennifer Croft 5 years to translate it. So it's a big work, and there is so much care put into it. You can really tell that these two women bled into this book almost. They didn't put themselves into the book, but they put their care and their effort and their work in. And it's very, very evident. It also took me technically a year and a half to read. I will say that once I actually sat down and read it, it only took me 3 months. But I started it last year just as it came out. We had a bunch of damaged copies. I was given an ARC, and I did not read the ARC. It took me from January until now to actually read. because she's a behemoth. I don't read long books. I am a short book girly. I like her under 300 pages. That's my optimal reading experience. But I am glad I finished this. I feel accomplished. Even if I am not really accomplished, because I have nothing profound to say. Tokarczuk has spoken about this book being a monograph of movement. We follow the Frankists and side characters as they move around Central Europe. And it's interesting to me that she would say it's a monograph on movement and not a monograph on migration. We have movement of ideas, religious ideas, but also science, ideas of culture, what constitutes a people or a group, what separates one entity from another. Why am I different from you? Something that I definitely learned from this book was the cultural diversity that used to exist in Poland. I lived in Poland, in Warsaw, for a year. In university, I did an exchange. And my impression of the country was definitely not a cultural mosaic. While I was in Poland, I was straight passing, I'm white, I looked like I could be a Polish person, and so I was treated fine. But my friends who were not white, who were not straight passing, not cis passing, they were not treated well outside of the university context. So to read this book and to see the mosaic that existed in Poland a few hundred years ago, a mosaic of religious beliefs, but also of languages and different sorts of cultures merging and like living in relative harmony. Not all the time. There's definitely some instances of very anti-Semitic beliefs that turn into action in this book. There's a lot of suffering of Jewish people. But Poland was a sort of refuge for Jewish people at one time. And not just of Jewish people, but people of other cultures. There's a lot of Turkish people that used to live there, a lot of people from other parts of the Ottoman Empire. So there was a lot of languages spoken. My own maternal grandmother, my mother's mother, she was not born in Poland, she was born in Canada, but both of her parents were Polish. And because of that, my grandmother spoke Polish, Ukrainian, Yiddish, French, German, and English. None of my aunts or uncles or my mother speak any language besides English. So that is a loss that has happened in my family. And that's obviously from migration, from coming to Canada, but that's also evident in other Polish families who still live in Poland. That is a very big loss, I think. To lose language is to lose culture, to lose personal history and family history. And I think that's very sad. It's very, very sad. I felt a lot of times while reading this book, especially at the beginning, that Tokarczuk was laughing at organized religion. Tokarczuk has been very clear that she is an atheist. If you read any interview with her, she's very, very clear about her personal beliefs. But as I read further and deeper into this book, I came to the conclusion that she's not laughing at organized religion. She is asking the reader to think critically about the belief systems that we are presented with. Bad things happen to people of all belief systems in this book. Jewish people, Frankists, Catholics, people who maybe aren't religious at all. And I really do think that Tokarczuk is demonstrating the absurdity of any kind of belief system, any way of making your way through this world. It doesn't make sense. I'm no longer saying anything. I think this is maybe why I don't read big books. I used to be able to synthesize ideas, and I don't think I can anymore. I can't summarize, I can't blend, I can't mix. I feel like this book has been selling way more than I thought it would. It sold very decently in the hardcover, which was $50. And in paperback, it's still been selling, which is shocking to me when people bring it to the counter and they're like, yes, please, I would like to buy this book. In my head, I am like, are you sure? Good for you, I support you, but are you sure? I was hoping that after a week had passed, I would have more things to say, but that is obviously not the case. And I don't think I'll develop profound thoughts around it in the days, weeks, months to come. But is it going to sit on my shelf because I finished it? Yes, it is. Just like the Goldfinch did for a couple years before I finally came to the conclusion that I would never read it again. And now it lives somewhere else. Thanks, Little Free Libraries. Yeah, I thought I'd have more to say. I know I had thoughts while reading this book. Clearly, they flew away. Please do not like, subscribe, comment. Don't support this. I do think it's interesting that I finished that big old magnum opus, and then what do I pick up but the biography of X by Catherine Lacey, which I am currently reading. And I think it's making me a little bit insane, but I'm really excited to fall into that insanity even more. I have about 100 pages left, and we'll see what's going to happen.